Heart of the Lion. My name is Anthony Strongheart. I was singing one song, and one native kind of spirit, and then little country twang come out. It's a country, a cowboy came out there, mountain man, and they're singing together, native and mountain man. And I was thinking about people don't understand how those two things related. They think maybe got one good idea about some Native American, one bad idea about one cowboy, or vice versa. However, it can be like that. And I was thinking about telling people about that connection in there, that they're connected. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful connection. And then thinking about I was saying, those two people, they warred with one another. And that's often how we bond, the biggest villains, all of a sudden, the biggest foes, I guess you should say, become bonded, because they've seen the same tragedies and horrors, and they've been through the ringer with one another, and there becomes a admiration and appreciation for each other, in that warring that happens, as men often find a bonding when they've been through war with one another, even sometimes from opposite sides, because you go through those. And then I was thinking about telling some people in this world, or maybe some ladies or something like that, about this kind of thing. And from the outside looking in, they might, especially haven't gone through too much in their lives, or maybe just haven't seen it from a male's perspective like that, that they might balk at that and say, oh, that's trauma bonding. That's a famous word right now, and just a buzzword out there, trauma bonding or something like this, and it's a psychological word made up to talk about something seen in psychology, but it seems so far removed, that idea, trauma bonding. It's distant. It's like putting it off, It's not really connected with what's really going on. In my assumption of it, my opinion, my view and outlook of it. It's not trauma bonding. That's not what it is. It's a greater design from Creator God, the eternal being. One great design, it's like that yin yang has so much beauty to share with us, that little bit of black and all the white, and a little bit of white and all the black, and the circle, how it comes around again. Is such significance, same as the DNA spirals around again. One more time, the repetition of things is a very important thing. The repetition does something. We learn through that repetition, and one repetition almost means nothing, but multiple repetitions for so long makes somebody a master, an expert at what they do, simply through the repetition of things. And so that circle coming around again to meet the same point. One again, two ends of the circle, two ends of the same line, that actually they're opposite sides of the circle, but they actually do meet. They meet together. And so this, what they want to call trauma bonding, is no trauma bonding. It's a creation. It's a design of creation of God, eternal being. A part of the design is that you can only go so far against each other before you come to a greater meeting that's beyond the separation. And sometimes that does not happen until death, or until multiple generations die, but still the war, the going head to head with one another, eventually ends up in a connection, something that you would think would destroy all connection, somehow ends up where you're tied to one another. And that's where this idea of karma, two warring factions, two warring sides commit such heinous atrocities against each other. Their very life, their very karma of the next generation is tied to the other, tied to the ability. It's like some conflicts that are maybe still going on right now, where the warring sides have done such heinous things to one another for so long. They've done stuff to one another that the very next survival of the generation of the next generation, they haven't even done anything. They're babies. They have done nothing. Maybe they haven't even seen anything be done to their families yet. But the hate that happened, the trauma that happened from those conflicts so long ago in their ancestry is still residue on their parents. And their parents are raising them with that. They feel that in the womb. Those babies are picking up that hatred, that anger, that grudge, that trauma, that thing. And those babies, when they are children, their karma is so heavily tied to how much they can heal that trauma, let go of that trauma, and do the right thing despite that trauma. And their ultimate key to freedom, success, freeing themselves from the bonding, from the trauma that they experienced, that the ultimate thing that can free them from that is the ability to heal, forgive, and let go. And so their past ancestry, all that warring, tied their children to each other. The children on both sides are tied to, can they forgive? Can they heal? And can they let go? And if they can do that, they will find peace again in their hearts. And that ultimate peace is tied to forgiving, healing, and letting go of these war things that happened, that were such opposite sides of the circle, opposing each other, bound to opposing each other, becomes bound to forgiving each other. And so it's so beautiful. It's a beautiful creation design. It's not a bug. It's a feature that allows for greater connection and harmony with the overall universe to be had. And the more that we war against each other, the more that we're tied to healing, forgiving, letting go, and becoming greater. And in that trauma of really experiencing hell with one another, we force ourselves to have a fighting cause that is pressuring us at all times to heal, forgive, and let go. And so all this challenge that's happening in the world, all this challenge that's always been happening in the world since all the way back, way ancient times, all the way to now, is just putting the extra pressure on ourselves to heal, forgive, let go, and remember our connection to the greater universe. Remember who we truly are. And so it's a design of the universe. It's a blessing. And these sides, even though they're warring, there is a truth, there is a place where you have to stand up and you have to fight for what you believe in, because the other side is diametrically opposed, and there is a right and there is a wrong, and it's not always, there's a lot of nuance in everything. I'm not trying to dumb it down, but there is a right and there is a wrong, and you must be able to stand up for yourself. And these are parts of life too, and they're not to be thrown away. Don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. But in these conflicts that we have, they are driving us to recognize something that is also true, and maybe even more true. It doesn't mean you don't have to be a human. You still got to pay your bills. You still got to defend your property. You still got to have your boundaries. You still got to go through this life as a human. But there is an ultimate truth that we all come from the same place. We all come from God, eternal being. This whole world comes out of God, eternal being. And so that truth is being driven home through these things. And so the mountain men and the cowboys way out in the big mountains, and the native peoples that lived in those lands before, they share a common thing, a place in those mountains. Those mountains are a challenge. Those mountains are a challenge. And those people, they went into that challenge and they said, this challenge is worth all the beauty that I find here. All the peace that I find way out in the beautiful mountains. All the peace I find out way out in the wild blue yonder. All the connection, the closeness to God, the closeness to spirit, to the spirit of the forest and the spirit of the mountain, and the spirit inside our souls. All that closeness is worth me dealing with this challenge of survival here. And in that way, when they fight each other, different tribes, different groups, when they fight each other, they also have a love in common, a love for that wild place, that nature, that calling to God inside their souls. And so we are all connected, and there's a beauty in both sides, and all sides. And the truth is God, eternal being, and the truth is that natural connection to this world. And so forgive, heal, let go, and remember that God created this world. There's a blessing in how it works, and that what they want to call trauma bonding is really, there's a blessing that's calling us, And that doesn't mean there's a lot of nuance there. There's a lot of nuance. You don't want to be getting dragged back into conflicts that are old, that are no good for you. You don't want to be calling in people that are abusing you or disrespecting you. You don't want to be caught in a cycle where you're just only able to disrespect people and you can't show nobody no love. That we're not talking about getting caught up in those toxic cycles. We're talking about how the connections that we find in the deepest conflicts that we've had, those connections are something that is showing us something so precious. And there is a love, if we can learn to find it there, a love for creation and for God that will show us to a brighter day, show us to a guiding light inside our souls, show us to harmony, show us to our true nature and our true selves. And the people that have had to go through extreme traumas and had to make a choice between either continuing to carry this grudge and this trauma and get my life destroyed because I can't forgive, heal, and let go, or find that love that allows me, find that guidance that allows me to forgive, to let go, and to heal. And when I can find that kind of guidance, when I can find that kind of way, I can find my way to a bright new future where I'm free and I remember my true nature as a free being created by God for success, for health, for peace, for happiness, for harmony, for joy, for becoming and bringing that light into the world. And we can find that sometimes by these pressures that are exuded on us, by the folly of actions, or not even the folly sometimes, just the faded actions, the things that happen in this world, where our boundaries get tested, and we have to learn to fight for those, and then we have to learn to find the deeper meaning behind and beyond all that. There's a beauty in that. The trauma that happens isn't just some tragedy. It's also showing us the way to a bright new day, to a lighter self, to a more connected self. So God is often showing us the way. One thing I say sometimes too is that sometimes God will point you in a direction. He says, okay, I want you to go over here. And you think, oh, I'm chasing direct. I've got to get to point A. I got to get to point I. I got to get to point A. And then halfway to point A, God will point you in another direction. And all of a sudden, your desire for point A is gone. And point B becomes the main focus. And you don't know why. But the thing is, to get to point B, you had to go halfway to point A. And if God didn't get you to halfway to point A, you would have never made it to point B if you had to go straight across. It was too challenging, too hard. So God guided you this way and then turned the direction that way. It was never about point A. It was always about point B. And so sometimes God works in mysterious ways, in these ways to guide us, to get us to where we need to be. And oftentimes we're only ready for the part that we're ready for. And so sometimes, that may look like some of these conflicts or tragedies or things, but God is really guiding us. And so we must trust and surrender and look inside and find that true place and defend ourselves and be humans and pay our bills and take care of the things we need to take care of and learn and try to always be growing and becoming better and better and better. God bless each and every one of you. God bless me. God bless this world. Thank you, Creator God, for all this beauty that we have around us, for all this blessing, the mountains, the streams, and the forests, the wilderness, and the cities, and the electricity, and the roads, and the highways, and the boats, and the ocean, and the beach, all over the world, the blessed, beautiful, holy place that we live, and all the blessed, beautiful human beings, including ourselves, our touchstone to God, eternal being. Thank you, God, for this beautiful touchstone inside of our hearts, that we can connect to you, that we can communicate with you, that we can be with you, that we can remember the true light of our souls. Bless you, all of you beautiful people, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks for tuning in to Heart of the Lion with Anthony Strong Heart.